Hey guys, what's up? It's Zyflin here, and today I'm going to be showing you guys my Corinth builds, and this is because a lot of people have been asking me recently for the builds of weapons that the last time I covered was like way back in 2017. So I thought of maybe doing like one weapon build guide video per week just to keep those people happy who want like those updated builds and stuff like that. So the Corinth is my favorite weapon in the game right now, simply because this thing one-shots everything. Whenever we get the ability to rename our primary weapons, I'm going to call this thing One Pump because that is literally all you need. I'm going to show off 3 builds today. One is a 100 munitions build, the other one is a standard crit build, and then the last one is going to be like a beginner-friendly, easy-to-make build type of thing. So this first build right here, usually I have a Riven on it in the place of Blaze, but Blaze is, a mod that like you can just change out for whatever you feel like throwing on. If you have something better, then you can definitely go ahead and throw it on. So let's just talk about the build real quick. So we have Prime Point Blank on here for damage, Prime Ravage for critical damage, Hell's Chamber for multi-shot, Blunderbuss for crit chance. We've got our elemental damage mods, so Primed Charge Shell and Contagious Spread for our corrosive. 100 munitions on here for those slash procs, so whenever we crit, we have a 30% chance to proc some slash, which is going to finish enemies off if we don't happen to kill them with our initial shot. So that's really cool. And then we have our flex slot over here, where we can throw on the likes of Incendiary Coat, Blaze, Riven, Vigilante Armaments, whatever you want to throw on. It is totally up to you. I like throwing on my Riven because it's damage, puncture, and multi-shot, meaning that any armored enemy pretty much just going to drop dead as soon as I shoot them. You know, it's crazy. Not so good versus the Corpus, but because the weapon's damage is just so damn high, then that negative damage to Corpus doesn't really matter that much anyway. But then again, I'm never really using the Corinth versus the Corpus because there are better options out there, like a gas comb or something. So yeah, there is that. But I'm going to show this build with the Riven, and then we're going to swap it up, and we're going to go ahead and throw on Blaze just to demonstrate. And yeah, let's just go ahead and do it. So we're going to be testing versus level 110 Corrupted Heavy Gunners. I'm going to have them pause so I can headshot them. Now, pausing the enemies doesn't give me any type of damage bonus because it's not a melee weapon and it's not silent. So yeah, check this out. The bad guy is dead, right? So we didn't kill him with the initial shot, but because we got that slash proc on there, that finished it off for us. So this one, same story. You know, we didn't kill it with the initial shot, but the slash proc did the trick. There we go. We one-shot that guy. Didn't need the slash proc. Didn't need the slash proc. Need the slash proc that time. Okay, definitely gonna need the slash procs here, but we're still winning. All right, slash procs again, finishing him off, and then there we go. We got the one shot. So the Corinth is an insane weapon for pretty much all the content in this game. Level 110 is going to be the highest level enemy that you're going to come across if you're doing like your daily sorties and whatnot. The only way you're going to come across an enemy that is higher level than 110 is if you're doing something like, you know, an endurance run or something like that. So there's really no need to test out versus like higher level enemies. But even then, the Corinth would still hold its own with this specific build. So we're going to go ahead, throw on Blaze now. So you can see the effects of this weapon without the Riven. It's not going to be as strong, but, you know, still a pretty decent amount of damage there. We did half of his health with one shot. So we got unlucky we didn't proc any slash procs that time. But if we do proc slash procs, well then, you know, it's just going to eat away at the enemy's health. And they're going to die. Like that. So, there you go. You got your slash proc on there. 2,400 damage per slash proc isn't bad. So you just got to keep on shooting the enemies in the head for that consistent damage. Consistent high damage. And those high damage in slash procs, right? So, not as strong without the Riven, but you get that Riven. There is a one-shot with this build. You get that Riven, and it's going to be an insane weapon. So definitely go out of your way to get a Corinth Riven if you want this weapon to be as insane as it usually is for me. But yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and throw that back on, just so then whenever I equip the Corinth, I'm not wondering why I'm not one-shotting. So the Riven does a lot of work, and that's because of the damage stat and the multi-shot stat. So try to get those two stats at the very least. We also have that added puncture on there as well, which helps out a decent bit with the initial damage that we deal to those heavy gunners. It could be better. It could be like an elemental damage stat that we had on there instead of the puncture damage, and then that way it would have been better across the board on different enemies. And then we could also have like minus zoom or something as the negative, but unfortunately we have the puncture stat and the minus damage to corpus, which isn't that good. But moving on to the config B, this is basically the exact same build, just without the hunter munitions, right? So we're not getting those slash bucks on there, and it's more about the initial damage that we're doing to the enemy. So it's Prime Point Blank, Hell's Chamber for our damage and multi-shot, Blunderbuss, and Prime Ravage for our critical chance and critical damage, Blaze for our damage and heat, Incendiary Coat for heat damage as well, Contagious Spread, and Charged Shell for our corrosive damage. So let's just go ahead, test this out versus the same guys. Shoot them in the head, and hopefully they're dead. So definitely not as good, at least in my opinion. Like, you're really missing out without the hunter munitions on there. We got a corrosive proc that time, so yep, there you go. As you can see, he died. So whenever you proc that corrosive, which you're not going to proc often because this isn't a status weapon, then, the enemies die just a little bit faster because they have less armor. So not quite one-shotting here, but that's to be expected because you don't have, the likes of a Riven. You don't have hunter munitions helping you out. You're just relying on the pure damage off the weapon. So even then, it's still pretty good. It's not a bad weapon at all. It's still a really nice weapon. So let's go ahead and move on to our third and final build. This here build is a beginner build. So if you pick up the Corinth and you're a newer player, this is the build that you're going to be running. And I just want to also demonstrate like the type of damage that you can expect out of this weapon with this type of build. So it's a regular point blank, Hell's Chamber. We've got Blaze on there for damage and heat. We got Ravage for critical damage. We've got Blunderbuss for critical chance. And then we've got the non-prime version of Charged Shell. We've got Contagious Spread on here to make corrosive, and Incendiary Coat for our heat damage. So it's pretty much the exact same build. It's just with no prime mods, right? So let's go ahead and try it out. So the last build wasn't as good as the first build, so don't expect anything amazing from this build, but you can still see that we deal decent damage with it as well. And the fact that this weapon has a pretty fast reload, it's just gonna kill enemies pretty quickly. And this is without using the likes of like Warframe abilities or anything, right? We could use Wisp's Reservoir to up the fire rate and then increase our DPS that way. We could use Rhino's Roar. We could use Chroma's Vex Armor. We could use Mirage. There's lots of different Warframes that we could use to up the amount of damage that we're dealing to these enemies, like Ash's Shuriken. Even things that'll debuff the enemies as well is going to help out. Pretty sure I have a corrosive projection on my Wisp as well. I usually always have corrosive projection on my frames, so that's going to influence the damage that we're seeing just a little bit, because the enemies are going to have, I think the stat is 30% less armor. Yeah, 30% less armor. So, make sure you're running corrosive projection as well, because corrosive projection just helps a lot versus those armored enemies. Not so much versus enemies with shield and stuff, because it literally doesn't affect those guys. But, again, I would be using a different weapon other than the Corinth if it came to killing the likes of Corpus and whatnot. So, yeah, why don't we test it out using the likes of Rhino's Roar? Like, why not? Because Rhino is a Warframe that a lot of people probably have. So this is, yep, a strength and duration build. Perfect. Let's go ahead and fashion frame it up. So there we go. We got a red and black Corinth. Spawn in the bad guys. Gonna go ahead and jump on over. Hit our Roar. So here's your beginner build with what I would consider to be a beginner Warframe. So you still deal pretty okay damage, but it is definitely taking less shots to kill them with your Rhino buff, right? So just make sure that you're up close. The closer you are with the shotgun, the more likely you are to one-shot them, because that's how shotguns work, right? There's less fall-off whenever you're up close. That was a juicy one. Holy. And then one more. There you go. So, Corinth is a really nice weapon. I really enjoy playing around with it. It's especially nice using it with the likes of Vault. You know, I'm using Vault to speedrun through my capture missions and whatnot, capture void missions, you know, stuff like that. And I'll have my Riven build on. So if I'm using Vault speed, then I'm reloading the weapon insanely quickly. So just check this out. We go ahead and use our speed, shoot a few shots out, and we're completely loaded again. So it already has a very fast reload. You pair that with Volt speed or whatnot, it's even better. And then let's try it out with a fire rate buff on like Gauss or something. Actually, I'll just use Wisp, because Wisp was the frame that I was using at the beginning of the video. Get on our proper fashion frame. Gotta look nice. And we'll use a different build. There we go. Pick up our stuff. Go ahead, put down our reservoir. So you can see that the weapon is even crazier with the bonus fire rate added to it as well. So I'm a really big fan of using this with Gauss too, because Gauss just increases everything. It increases your fire rate. It increases your reload speed. That's his fourth ability. So yeah, we need to check this out. So we go ahead and we hit our 4. And we up our meter a little bit. We need a little bit more energy. Here we go. Spawning the bad guys too. Eat on over there. Crazy good. Crazy good. Love it. So, like, those 3 frames that I just showed you, Wisp, Vault, Gauss, those guys are my go-to whenever it comes to using the Corinth. Because, I mean, like, look at this, man. It's just crazy. I'm not even having to headshot them, and they're just dying. So, the Corinth is a really fun weapon. Like, there's a good reason that it's my favorite weapon in the game right now. But yeah, pick it up as soon as you can. I can't wait for a Corinth Prime to come out. Hopefully it's better than the original Corinth. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, go ahead, hit that like button below. If you want to see more Warframe content from me, hit subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.